that dumb doctor? Does she know what's wrong with you?
We're gearing our children to grow up and hold up this world of ours.
Opposed to saying, oh, January 1st, I'm going to start my resolution, we just face it.
You just heard a few choice spots from our show. Listen more to Passage to Profit coming up next.
Want to protect your business? The time is near. You've given it heart. Now, get it in gear. It's Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
I'm Richard Gearhart, founder of Gearhart Law, a full-service intellectual property law firm specializing in patents, trademarks, and copyrights.
And I'm Kenya Gipson, the media maven, sitting in for Elizabeth Gearhart.
Welcome to Passage to Profit, everyone, the road to entrepreneurship, where we talk with startups, small businesses, and discuss the intellectual property that helps them flourish. And on our show today, we have Dr. Rajka Galbraith. She's a physician, author, and founder of the Simply Health Institute. And she also has a new book coming out called Energized, Feel Fantastic Forever.
Also joining us is Naima Ricks and Cecilia Ricks, the authors of the Empowerment ABCs, and Derick Johnson, who is the founder of Fit with Derick. He's a fitness coach and a life coach.
But before we get to our distinguished guests, it's time now for IP in the News. And IP in the News this week is about Mariah Carey. And she has this favorite song of mine that she sings all the time. All I Want for Christmas Is You, right? It's a very famous song.
It is.
And it's also achieved almost $3 million in royalties over the last years. Well, it turns out that somebody is suing her for copyright infringement. And the suit alleges that Carey copied the compositional structure of an extended comparison between a loved one and the trappings of seasonal luxury, right? And it also states that it also includes some of the lyrics from the song. And I think, it's an interesting suit. The funny thing is that they released their version in 1986. So that was a long time, and it's kind of a long time to wait to bring a lawsuit. Lots of times artists get sued because they make a lot of money on their songs, and people sort of come up with excuses to kind of cash in on that. So, Kenya, what are your thoughts on this situation?
Talk about a delayed response, right? That's a long time. So I feel two ways. First of all, I'll go on record and say I love Mariah Carey. So shout out to Mariah. But secondly, it's been a long time. And I feel like, wasn't there some point in the process of making the song where they had to get permission? I can't imagine that someone skipped over that entire process. And I have a question for you, Richard. Is there a statute of limitations on when someone can actually sue someone over something that's practically been going on for over 20 years.
Right. And there is actually a statute of limitations at 6 years. And so they're well past the statutory period. And so there's probably a good chance that the suit would get dismissed. Hopefully this is just a publicity stunt and they're really not serious about it. But I can't really appreciate how somebody could bring a suit. The song's been out there for so long. So
yeah. You know what I would do to solve this whole thing? She's made millions. I'd write them a nice little check and just send them on their way.
Send them $1,000 or something.
So they can't contest anything.
Dr. Rajka, what do you think about all this?
I'm with Kenya. Who cannot love Mariah Carey? And just it's such a great, uplifting song. And it's kind of like energetically, like, why bother now? And so I'm with her.
Naima and Cecilia, what are your thoughts?
I believe that artists should be compensated for their work. Back in the day, a lot of artists their music was stolen by other people, and there was no form of compensation. I do believe that if I wrote a song, I should be compensated for the song, especially if it becomes famous. Like Dr. Rajka said, Mariah has been singing this song for decades now. So why would you wait this long? And I think a lot of people are riding on Ed Sheeran's story, where he just got sued for the same thing, but he was proven that he didn't do it because he is an actual artist and he created his own music. So I kind of think they should have a seat.
It sounds to me like they just woke up and realized maybe they are a little broke. I don't know.
Right.
Just saying. That's all I have to say. It sounds like they woke up a little broke and said, let's make some money today.
So one of the things that's really challenging by being a recording artist is lots of times you don't have a lot of money. And sometimes if there is a copyright infringement, you don't really have the money to pursue it. You can't afford to hire a lawyer. And we get that at our practice a lot. People will come to us and they'll say, well, we think our song is being infringed by one of these artists, and they may actually have a decent case, but it costs so much money to put on that case, and especially if it's a big artist with a big pocketbook. So I still think they should have done something sooner, but maybe they just couldn't afford to do it, and maybe now they're in a position to do it. I don't know. Derek, what do you think?
I agree with you. I think the time period and probably the financial struggle, or they did the analytics. They looked at the numbers to see how much he's making per month, every month, because it plays year round, not just holiday season. So they looked at the numbers, were like, wait a minute. And they reverse engineered how much money they could get back. So I think they're trying to get some investment. Somebody's trying to retire. So they're trying to set up their kids, if they have kids. I don't know anything about the individual, but I think they're trying to get a quick game plan to retirement.
Yeah. I mean, most of these lawsuits end up failing, and it depends on the attitude of the artist, but lots of times they just say, look, I'm not going to put up with this, sort of like Ed Sheeran decided he was, going to take a stand, but then you take a big risk that something could go wrong, or you just write a check and get on with your life. It's like Mariah Carey's already got more money than God, right? So, it's not
I can
like
see
she
her
needs this.
saying, make it go away, darling, make it go away.
Well, that's amazing. And if you have an idea or invention or a song or anything that you want to protect, you need to contact us at Gearhart Law. We work with entrepreneurs worldwide to help them through the entire process of obtaining patents, trademarks, and copyrights. And you can visit us at gearhartlaw.com for a free consultation. So, all of that said, now it's time for our guest, Dr. Rajka Galbraith. Welcome to the show. So nice to see you again. We met a while ago, one of the Clint Arthur seminars. You said that you were very anxious to be on the show, so we're glad you could finally make it.
Thank you for having me. I so enjoy sharing my message, and I can hear the passion behind your voice, that you're of the same vein when it comes to your field.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us about what you do.
So I was a traditionally trained medical doctor in the field of family medicine. I delivered babies all the way, took care of them from birth, I'd like to say, through the geriatric age. And pretty quickly in private practice, I realized I wasn't curing anyone. And it took me about a decade, and I found another field of medicine called functional medicine, where we look at identifying the root causes of inflammation and removing those triggers for inflammation to restore balance. And it's been both life and career altering. And as a practice, I restore the energy of my patients, particularly the high performers that come in, business owners, entrepreneurs. We see a lot of that. I do that. And then we segue into not only recovering them, but helping them live along well through some anti-aging longevity protocols that I have in place.
So why did you feel like you weren't curing people when you were a medical doctor? I mean, you still are, right? But when you practice traditional medicine.
So one of the most common symptoms that came in back in the day was fatigue. And here's what the training in allopathic medicine entailed was you would do the exam, and now with 7-minute visits, I think the exams are falling on the wayside. There just simply isn't that time. You do the blood workup, and more than 90% of the time the labs were normal. And then we were to suggest to the patient, and this is the way we were trained, that perhaps they were depressed. So within a few months of practice, I had a woman come in, same scenario, labs were normal. So I said, could you be depressed? And I knew it in my heart of hearts, and I could see it on her face. She absolutely was not depressed. And as I walked her to the lobby and opened the door to escort her, back to her family member that was waiting, and it was a friend, and she says, does she know what's wrong with you? And she said, that dumb doctor doesn't know what's wrong with me. And at first but more than that, it was, what am I doing then? I came out to cure, to heal, to help. And it's become, as we'd said, the book is Energized, Feel Fantastic Forever. And it really describes my theory behind why people acclimate to lower levels of energy that I'd love to share with you.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful because I will be honest with you. Most experiences I've had going to the doctors is just been very prescription based, right? So it's like there's a pill for that, where I feel most people have that experience when they go and they don't leave with any real resolution. So would you say a lot of your diagnosis is based on blood work, based on physical symptoms? How do you come up with how to treat someone?
It's a combination of everything. So we do a really in-depth, my intake form is over 24 pages long. And it looks at what they eat, what someone eats, how they sleep, what is their purpose in life, who's their support system, what do they do for movement, what is their job, and just like how they rate all aspects of their life, what was their birth history, their family history. So we get clear on the history. I do an exam. Maybe once a year I find something that's been missed, which is, I'm grateful I can do that. A lot of times it contributes as far as you can tell nutrient deficiencies, which are vitamins and minerals, by a skin exam or their nail exam. And then I'll do the labs, and it's more than just your standard metabolic panel, blood count, maybe a vitamin D and a lipid panel. It's pretty extensive. And in fact, sometimes we have to break it up into 2 lab draws, so many. And then we have specialty tests that look at what is going on in our intestines, or microbiome, or all the bacteria in our intestines, and how does that contribute largely to our immune health and to our mental health. And we can do testing on what toxins has someone been exposed to. So we decide at each visit what are the next best steps. And I've identified over the last 10 years what are the right steps to take so that I can quickly improve someone's energy. And I describe that. I call it the 3D energy protocol.
It's awesome.
So how do you discover whether somebody is depressed or fatigued because they have a physical problem? So lots of times I hear people talk about, well, I'm depressed, but you said earlier that sometimes that's because they're physically not well. So how do you distinguish between the two?
They oftentimes go hand in hand. And, as far as the depression, you want to make sure they don't have suicidal ideation, that they don't have a plan. So you're looking for that. And those are the more serious cases. So you're not going to take 6 weeks to try to remedy that. And you may, use an allopathic approach, which is a prescription. So it's always the first and most important thing is to protect the patient and do no harm as well. Mm-hmm. But they often go hand in hand. What I would say is that within that short 4 to 6 week time period, if someone does modest amounts of the protocol I've asked them to implement, which is diet, lifestyle, gentle supplementation, movement, they usually get at least a 50% improvement. And so if they lift that quickly with no medication, then you're on the right track. So we are asking the right questions to ensure it's not florid depression, or are they just secondarily depressed? So it's a little more nuanced, and we're looking for any serious signs so that we can take a slower approach to it so that we restore health. And even in any case, even if it were depression, or as I'd said, the microbiome, which are all the bacteria in our large intestine, make about 70% of our serotonin. So if the gut bugs are off, then your mental health can be off.
That's interesting you say that, because I think a lot of people just think about the vitamin D level, and that is the main area of focus. But I love that you mentioned the microbiome, because like you said, it's like a little chemistry experiment that's going on in your body. And if that's out of whack, then you're going to have a different experience.
Absolutely. You see me shaking my head. I'm just like, absolutely. That's absolutely right.
So how do you get an appropriate microbiome? Everybody's different, right? Mm-hmm. So do we all have different microbiomes? And then how do you tune up yours?
Okay. Excellent question. So we found there was a documentary that was done a little while ago called The Gut Movie, and it paralleled and kind of followed a producer from Australia who ate the standard Australian diet, and he did a stool test to look at what was the bacteria in his gut. And then he flew to Namibia, and he ate just what was grown in the land and what they hunted. And they retested him, and he went from a very inflamed profile to non-inflamed in 7 days. So largely what you eat is going to dictate whether you have a good microbiome or not, or we call it, you want an imbalance. And when it's out of balance, we say dysbiosis.
So we eat a lot of raw leaves and berries. We go out. No. How do you eat like an American diet and have a good microbiome? Or is it just you can't do it?
Can't do it. So, yeah. I mean, so that you want to build resilience. And sadly, if diet were just it, and that's where my second step comes in, if diet were just it, antibiotic use, even one time, can eradicate some very important bacteria to our health, and it can be challenging to restore. And there are certain probiotics, spore-based probiotics, that will help restore that imbalance. And sometimes you'll get a bacteria that's a trigger for our immune system. And what happens is our body recognizes the bacteria as foreign as far as the protein in the bacteria, and then the protein in that bacteria mimics our own body tissue. So if it's our joint, it could be rheumatoid arthritis. And there's a fancy term for that. And not to bore the listeners, it's called molecular mimicry. So the body gets confused. So then there are herbal protocols, and believe it or not, you can even use antibiotics, but I typically don't.
Right. I mean, we've had some professors on from Rutgers University who also created a movie, and they were talking about how the overconsumption of microbiotics, starting with children from a very early age, predisposes them to serious diseases later in life. And they theorize that it's because their microbiome systems keep getting challenged by these antibiotics, and it makes their microbiome systems more and more weaker and weaker and weaker, and that makes them susceptible to cancer, heart disease, diabetes, all sorts of conditions. So it really is super important. But I still want to know, is there a way that I can improve my microbiome? If I come to you, do you test for that? And then do you say, okay, you should try this, that, and the other thing?
Yeah, so we would start with the 3D protocol. So we talk about diet. And I've created, if you ever wonder why one diet works for one person and another doesn't, it's because we're all genetically different. So we have people track things and add things that are missing first. And then we usually ask them to do an elimination of foods for a short period of time to see which are their triggers. And then we have them add it back in, and we can actually help you figure out how to eat. So that is the first step. The second step we'd run you through like what makes proper digestion, and you can turn around and look in the toilet, as unglamorous as that may sound. But
that sounds awful.
I know, but you want to be, having bowel movements once a day. And I always say one long snake once a day means your digestion's working, right? It's a poor man's test to say it's working, right?
The toilet is very telling.
Yeah, I love it.
Right?
That's
to say the
great.
least. I do want to talk about the big H, Hashimoto's disease, because I feel like it's becoming more mainstream in terms of terminology, but a lot of people still don't know what it is. They still are underdiagnosed due to it. So can you talk a little bit about it?
Absolutely, because I myself have Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And there's this argument between the naturopathic doctors and allopathic doctors. And the allopathic doctors are like, believe it's not your thyroid, because they will have women come in, or men, saying I'm fatigued. And in one aspect, I will agree with them. When I was diagnosed, it was about 10 years after I had symptoms. So I felt horribly for 10 years. However, I'll give them this. It wasn't my thyroid. It was everything that led to the imbalance that needed to be corrected.
So what are the symptoms of this disease?
So Hashimoto's thyroiditis is your body attacking your thyroid gland, and it can manifest as depression, fatigue, dry skin, constipation, maybe a little brain fog. My big manifestation was the fatigue, and I simply needed almost 10 hours of sleep a night. And I just wasn't rested and couldn't recover very well. And when I was put on adequate medication, I went to sleeping 8 hours a night. That was my main symptom. Everyone presents a little bit differently.
Wow.
You have a new book coming out. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the book is Energized, Feel Fantastic Forever, and it really explains my theory on why do people become fatigued, and whether, for anyone listening, whether you feel tired or not, I can bet that you've probably, if you don't feel tired, have acclimated to a lower level energy. And I see this in my 20-year-olds. When we're done walking them through diet, digestion, detox, those are the first 3 steps. They will say, wow, I didn't know I could feel this fantastic. And that's someone who doesn't have symptoms at all. And what happens is we're born, and I've been testing vitamins and minerals, we call them nutrients, in people for over a decade. And most adults have 3 to 5 deficiencies, vitamin D being at the top of the list, but zinc and magnesium. And even if you ate a whole foods diet, you could still be deficient. But over the last decade, that number has crept up. More like 5 to 7. And we need certain vitamins and minerals to make our energy, our ATP. And then as we age, the mitochondria, which are responsible for making our energy, go down in number. And then on top of that, when we're stressed, stress eats up magnesium and B vitamins, which makes it even harder to make energy. And then you mix in a little bit of everyday toxins, so air pollution from car exhaust, what you put on your face, and that damages our mitochondria. So it's this vicious, never-ending cycle that kind of gets the ball in motion. And the name of the book should have been like How to Prevent or Cure Mitochondrial Dysfunction, but that's pretty boring, right?
Nobody's going to read it. But nobody's going to get that. No.
Won't be a bestseller, I don't think.
So let's say I'm going through a super stressful period in my life. Are there any eating changes that we should consider that could help kind of address the stress?
Yeah, so you want to watch the sugar intake. So sugar drives insulin, and it makes it hard. Then you put on the weight, and over time your body will become less resilient. So that's one. Number two is we teach all of our patients a modality that increases something called heart rate variability, and it's I teach every single patient that walks through the doors because it allows them to regulate the stress response, and it's just using your breath to regulate the heart rate to get you out of fight or flight. And how heart rate variability is used in medicine otherwise is, remember, if you've ever delivered a baby, they slap a monitor on you and you want to see wavy pattern with the baby's heartbeat. But as it starts to get erratic, that's a stress state. But I'll see that in my executives. They'll have that stress state. But there are some herbal supplements that I'll use to help people while we're implementing the lifestyle changes. And so it's not just stress will take you out, but the sleep contributes. So, think about being on our devices, probably not a good idea till right before when you fall asleep.
Yeah, I'm getting into the habit. I turn my phone off when I go to bed, and then I turn it on when I get up in the morning, usually one of the first things, but at least I don't have it on, so I'm getting all sorts of alarms and alerts, during the evening. And then lately I've been turning my emails off at around 6 o'clock, which I think shocks a few of my clients and other people because they're used to getting responses. But I also think it helps me relax a little bit more before bed. So.
That's so disciplined and impressive.
Well, you can with your cell phone now, you can set it up so that it just turns it off automatically.
No,
so
I know that, but I'm just saying that to have the discipline to actually do that. Like, I totally don't want to do that.
Well, now I know we can get you 24/7, can you?
I don't know that, but it's just hard. I think it's hard for everybody to disconnect, right? But I'm impressed that.
Yeah, I love that, Richard. I think that is super disciplined because it's easier said than done. And I'm going to challenge you to do one thing is to turn the phone off an hour before you go to bed and see if that makes a difference with sleep.
Anything you've ever seen that has been incurable?
If a disease process gets to us too late, there is a thing. Like, don't wait till it's too far gone because even, memory loss starts as brain fog. So if you're forgetting, why you walked into a room, identify it early.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Did you forget why you're here, Richard?
No, I know that. But, I think there is a good emphasis now, especially in functional medicine, of preventative medicine, right? Traditional medicine is just people getting cured as soon as they get really bad symptoms and get to the end. Now, there's so much we know and we can do. We can kind of head some diseases off, right? And, good diet, good sleep habits, I think are important. I think exercise is important.
Yeah. What I'd like to say is you want your lifespan to equal your health span. So live long well.
Dr. Rajka Galbraith, physician, author, and founder of the Simply Health Institute. And she also has a new book coming out called Energized, Feel Fantastic Forever, Passage to Profit with Richard Gearhart and Kenya Gipson. We'll be back right after this.
I represent low-cost airlines, and we know a lot of you are not traveling right now, and we understand. However, if you do need to travel between now and the end of the year, now is a great time to lock in some of the lowest prices we've seen in a lifetime. Hey, in normal times, we can save you up to 75%. But now airlines are practically giving away seats. We have inside deals on over 500 airlines. Here are a few sample round-trip deals we found. Seattle to Vegas, $35. Chicago to Atlanta, $85. Los Angeles to Atlanta, $100. Of course, there are some limitations, but the airlines want your business right now. And cancellation and change fees are flexible. So fly somewhere this year, book now, save a ton, call right now.
858-988-7477. 858-988-7477. 858-988-7477. That's 858-988-7477.
Have you ever met a single person in your life that enjoys paying taxes? No one does. If you can't sleep at night because you have a huge problem with the IRS, I've got some free advice for you. This service is strictly limited to individuals that owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes. And if you qualify, we can guarantee that you won't be writing a big fat check to the IRS, or our services cost you nothing. The first 100 people that call today will get a free tax consultation worth $500. Stop worrying about your IRS problem. We can help you, we promise. Call the tax doctor right now. I mean right now, to learn more.
800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. 800-917-8546. That's 800-917-8546.
Now back to Passage to Profit. Once again, Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
And I am here with Kenya Gipson, and we are here with Dr. Rajka, author of the book Energized, Feel Fantastic Forever. And she's also a functional medicine doctor. She's a board-certified family physician and founder of the Simply Health Institute. So we've been talking about all sorts of functional medicine philosophies and treatments and approaches. One of the things, Dr. Rajka, that we speak to on this show is the health of entrepreneurs, because it can be a very stressful way to make a living. And one of the things that you mentioned during the break was that oftentimes you treat executives who are going through difficult and challenging periods. And maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
So we do have a higher proportion of both entrepreneurs and high-level executives. And you're right, when you're an entrepreneur, the joke is you trade 40 hours a week for 24/7. So you don't want to do that. And earlier in my days in functional medicine, these high-level clients would come in and I'd recover them, but then they'd end up back in my office. I said, how do I keep this from happening? And one thing people should know is when you're that high-performing, you may not actualize stress internally. The common complaint or retort I got was, but doc, I don't feel stressed. And so we can run a stress test. You can do a blood test first thing in the morning. Preferable is I'll do a saliva test over 4 different time periods of the day. First thing in the morning, 30 minutes later, midday, in the afternoon, and even before bed. And when you prove to these high-performing people, look, your cortisol is through the roof, and those clients feel wired. Alternatively, with time, the cortisol production in the morning will go low, and then it'll increase at night, which is what you don't want. So those patients will wake up between 2 and 4 a.m. So if you are waking between 2 and 4 a.m., this may be a problem for you, that you're so stressed out it's taking a toll. And those people feel tired but wired. And then you can flatline, just like with the heart rate variability, and have low cortisol, and those people are just plain old tired. So if I were to explain this to people, they'd say, oh, okay, and I wouldn't have to test. But I find for my higher level professionals, having that test is tangible, and they say, wow, I need to do something about this.
I have those symptoms, by the way. I do. I find myself getting more jazzed as the day goes on, and then I usually wake up between 2 and 4 in the morning. So I don't know. So what do I do?
What do you do? I'm going to give you a simple strategy where you don't even have to have a device to bring yourself out of fight or flight. So many of us stay in fight or flight. Many of us breath hold when we're doing emails. So we're going to practice something called box breathing. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No.
Okay. So box breathing is where you inhale for 4 seconds. You hold for 4 seconds, you exhale for 4 seconds, and then you hold for 4 seconds. And if you just do rounds of that, maybe set a timer on your phone and once an hour do 5 minutes or 10 minutes. In the office, we teach heart math, which is a form of biofeedback. And why I like that for my high-level executives and entrepreneurs is it's a sensor that clips onto your ear, and you use a breath pattern. And believe it or not, most of us are over-breathing, and you need to breathe 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out. And you can actually watch the screen. Not that we love screens, and it'll tell you, are you out of fight or flight? And so it's training you how to get your body out of fight or flight. The statistics on the improvement over 6 to 9 weeks are pretty profound. So it reduces depression, fatigue, focus, improves sleep, and oftentimes as kind of a fun social media post, I'll just take a screenshot of the benefits they've seen and I say, what drug leads to this? And you get everyone guessing, and it's not a drug. And so if you don't have the device, just do some box breathing. If you do, over time, and if you're really jazzed up, particularly at night and you're waking up, there are herbal formulations we can use, including ashwagandha, and what we call that is an adaptogen. It'll bring up cortisol, or if you're too high, it brings it down. So it dampens that. And more than that, I really like something called phosphatidylserine. So it's just a fat found in our cells, helps fuel the brain, and it dampens that cortisol response, and it kind of takes the edge off while we get you utilizing the other modalities. And so that was really key. And our body has something called the limbic system. And it keeps us, it's our alarm system for the body. And if you're exposed to a major threat, or it could be a traumatic experience, you'll be stuck on all the time. And so an entrepreneur that I had recovered now twice, there's various training programs out there that'll teach you all the modalities. And one is called the Gupta program. And when we added that, he said, this was a missing piece. So he had relapsed, and I saw him like 3 years apart. And I said, yep, well, we've been implementing it now when we see fit. So, but yeah, the cortisol is definitely key in protecting yourself from just being taken out by anything.
Do you think that, and because I consider myself to be a high performer, but I'm really good at masking symptoms, right? So being in denial about like what I'm feeling, like maybe I'm tired, but I'm like, nope, I have 5 other things I have to do, or I'm stressed and I'm like, that's not stress. I'm just going to push past. So do you think that we're better at masking symptoms?
Absolutely. I think just by personality type, by perhaps even how you were raised. And another high performer said, same thing, I don't feel stressed, but she'd always get GI issues. So she was manifesting. Remember, the gut, the microbiome is so powerful. And so think about people who get nervous before they talk. They might be racing off to the bathroom because their brain is communicating down to the gut saying, whoa, we got to get you out of here. You know, this is scary. But yeah.
So does the cortisol create the stress, or it's a manifestation of the stress?
So manifestation. So we normally, cortisol should be higher in the morning and gently decline overnight, like a rolling hill. So if you can imagine that. And when you're constantly stressed, the whole curve will just elevate. And that's where we're wired. And then it'll invert. And so it'll be low in the morning and then high at night. And that's the tired but wired.
I want to just take it to childhood for a second, because you mentioned something really key about stress and coping. Do you think, like, in someone's childhood, if they've had a very stressful, overwhelming environment and that they've learned how to cope with that as a survival mechanism as a child, that they carry that over into their adult life, and that could, in the long term, help them overcompensate for symptoms that they might be experiencing versus someone who had a healthier childhood?
Absolutely. And let me tell you what's in the 24-page questionnaire. So embedded in there, I've inserted the Adverse Childhood Event Questionnaire. And it's 10 questions. The higher the score, the more likely you will have a dysfunctional cortisol response for life. And having a high, we call it ACE score, is associated with chronic diseases. So that's why I need to know. And so that's why I teach these modalities. And believe it or not, everything we're exposed to gets stored down at a cellular level. And think about, like, as high performers, we all do a lot of the trainings that will help elevate our energies, the mental energies. And when you vibe high, don't you, and you're smiling and you attract all those people, it's the same, is that you can affect cellular function with prior experiences. And it's all at a subconscious level. So it's super important to know and super important to address.
So, Dr. Rajka, in your book, Energized, Feel Fantastic Forever, you talk about detoxifying your body. We haven't talked too much about detoxifying, but what does that involve?
General detox is hydrating. It's eliminating via sweat, urine, or poop. I love talking about poop. No, I'm teasing.
It's only come up a couple of times.
It's super important. No, I joke. You know, when I went to my first functional medicine conference, I'm like, yeah, we're just like those Hollywood stars. They all walk away with Swarovski encrusted phone cases, and we had a poop test to take home.
There you go.
But at any rate, yeah, so the generalities are you want to make sure your natural ability to detox is working. So that's hydrating, it's eliminating, it's movement of the body to move the lymphatic system around. So that's why sometimes it's popular, the rebounders just jumping up and down. So kids have it easy, right? They like to jump on the trampoline. But more than that, it's also aligning, believe it or not, what you eat, having the right nutrients, vitamins and minerals to detox. So the B vitamins are crucial. Having enough protein in our body, and I think one of the next guests will be talking about protein, is our protein breaks down into amino acids, and you need those to clear toxins. So toxins get broken down into a more toxic byproduct, and if it gets stuck in that phase, you'll feel really sick, and you need it to be wrapped up in a water-loving molecule so you can eliminate it, and that requires protein. Precisely amino acids. So if you do a juice cleanse and you haven't done anything, you can be made to feel very, very sick. So it's not something I'm a fan of for someone who's not done one before and doesn't have everything lined up, because you're not supporting that second phase of detox.
What about fasting? I've heard that fasting is also a way that people can detoxify.
Yes, I love fasting. And so one of the key...
I don't, by the way.
It's hard.
My blood sugar drops, and I'm like done after like 30 minutes.
Okay, we're talking after the show, and let's explain. So the first thing most people should be able to do is a 12-hour fast, and I think all adults should be eating.
That's a long time.
You should eat between, say, 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. That's something that most people can achieve, and not everyone needs to fast for 6 hours, so that would mean eating in an 8-hour window. So it's a little bit harder. But what fasting does is it increases our body's way of cleaning out the clutter. We call that fancy term autophagy. And so that's super important, because if that's not happening, if you have a cluttered house, you're going to start tripping. Same with the body. The body's not going to function as properly. And I do a longevity test in the office, and it looks at how fast someone is aging. And you want to age 1 year, less than 1 year per 1 year. So I tested myself in January, and I'd love to share those results. I was aging at 0.9 years for 1 year. Sounds pretty good, but I thought, let's see if we can improve this. So I undertook a 5-day fast, 3 months in a row, and I'll describe how we can make that easy. And I repeated the testing, and I was at 0.72 years. So that's a significant drop. So that means every 4 years, I'm going to gain a year, if that makes sense.
Is it like how old you are in dog years?
Sort of. No, I'm teasing. It's just how fast your body's aging.
Got it.
So I'm aging slower, and it's definitely one of the best tests. So we call it pace of aging.
Is that a chemical test?
It's a blood test.
Blood test,
yeah,
okay.
It's a blood test. It's a finger prick, so it's pretty easy. You can do it at home, and I absolutely love it because it says, is everything that you're doing benefiting your body? But the 5-day fast I did, now doesn't that sound daunting?
It sounds impossible.
It sounds impossible to me. The good news is, Richard, they've invented a fasting mimicking diet where you can actually ingest.
So you can eat and fast at the same time?
Yes, it mimics fasting.
Modern technology. I love it.
Yeah, and so it's done over 5 days. So it's vegetarian for those 5 days. And that's how one of the ways you can double your energy is that you feel amazing by the time you're done. And you're typically within a day.
Interesting.
So all of this is in your book?
Yeah, all of this is in the book. And then we have a resource page coming out soon that will have kind of more detailed stuff. And even the double your energy in 5 days is a bonus content.
That sounds great. Where can people find you?
At my website, drrajka.com.
Dr. Rajka Galbraith, physician, author, and founder of the Simply Health Institute. Passage to Profit with Richard Gearhart and Kenya Gipson. We'll be back right after this.
Do you own an annuity, either fixed rate, indexed, or variable? Are you paying high fees and getting low returns? If so, Annuity General would like you to have this free book to learn the pitfalls and mistakes of buying an annuity. The Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers contains the little-known truths about annuities, like how to help reduce your fees and increase retirement income. And it's free. That's right, free. As a bonus, we'll also throw in a free annuity rate report just for calling. We researched over 1,000 annuities and summarized rates and benefits from financially strong insurers. You get Annuity Do's and Don'ts for Baby Boomers and the Annuity Rate Report, both absolutely free for calling Annuity General today. Hurry, supplies are limited. Call now.
800-653-8302. 800-653-8302. 800-653-8302. That's 800-653-8302.
The old way of living with diabetes is a pain. You've got to remember to do your testing and always need to stick your fingers to test your blood sugar. The new way to live your life with diabetes is with a continuous glucose monitor. Apply a discrete sensor on your body, and it continuously monitors your glucose levels, helping you spend more time in range and freeing you from painful finger sticks. If you are living with type 1 or type 2 diabetes and you use insulin or have had hypoglycemic events, you might be eligible for a CGM through your insurance benefits. U.S. Med partners with over 500 private insurance companies and Medicare. We offer free shipping, 90-day supplies, and we bill your insurance. Call us today for a free benefits check.
800-824-4596. 800-824-4596. 800-824-4596. That's 800-824-4596.
Passage to Profit continues with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart.
Time for Power Move with Kenya Gipson.
So this is our first official Power Move for 2024. We just had a young man who was here in the studio with us before we taped the show by the name of Al Boehner C. Eugene. He is the creator of a faith platform called What's the Word? And I had a really great conversation with him just about his walk with God, about how he's taking a practical approach about how he connects people to God, and just showing people how they can create self-love for them and just through hope and faith. And you were here, Richard, for the conversation.
He was amazing. He was one of the most interesting people to talk with. I really recommend that you check out his podcast. Mm-hmm. He was very inspiring, and he was very down to earth, a very grounded person. You know, he had such strong beliefs.
In a non-religious way, though, which I liked. I liked his take, and even when he felt called to what he was doing, he didn't want it necessarily, which was also very interesting. So now he's become an incredible leader, and he has millions of followers, and that's because his message resonates. He's good at being himself.
I like the way you say that. And where can you find Power Move?
You can find Power Move on YouTube. So Elizabeth has been very gracious to be my YouTube podcast coach. So you can find it on YouTube.
That sounds great. So, yeah, Elizabeth isn't here today, but she asked me to make a plug for Fireside. And as you know, Fireside is a directory of small businesses, and she's in the process now of remarketing it and revamping it. What the idea is that individual businesses, coaches, service providers, just about anybody can create a short video that gets put in this directory, and then the directory promotes the video. And if people are looking for somebody in your service area, then they can click and they can watch just a few minutes of what you have to say. And by putting all of the videos together, it makes it really easy for potential customers to kind of go through and see who they like, right? Rather than spending a lot of time on the phone. So we're very excited about the project, and she's deeply involved in it, and she's making progress every week.
Hi, Elizabeth here. Have you heard about Podfest Expo? If not, listen up. PodFestExpo.com is where you want to go for information, but I'll tell you why I'm so excited to be going and why Richard is excited to be going too. Podfest Expo brings together podcasters from all over the world. It's in Orlando, Florida, January 24th through most of the weekend. I think it ends Sunday morning. It's just an amazing event. This is the 10th anniversary. They've been doing it continuously for 10 years. The guys that started this really know their stuff. I met Chris in New York, saw him give a short presentation, and there was so much info jam-packed into that one short presentation. I was like, okay, I'm going to Florida in January. I got to see what else these guys have to say. The lineup of speakers is amazing, but there's also going to be incredible networking. So most of my podcasting friends that I've talked to about this are planning to go, and I plan to meet new people too. There's also going to be a few fun parties. This is going to be a great way to kick off 2024. If you're thinking about podcasting, if you have a podcast, I know they have presentations on monetization, on growing your audience, and also they're very forward looking. So what's going to be different in 2024 and how can we stand out? Those are things I'm hoping to take away. So if you're interested, it's podfestexpo.com. podfestexpo.com. If you sign up, let me know and we'll look for you, and I hope to see you there.
Now it's time to go to our guests, and these people are the authors of The Empowerment ABCs, which is a really magnificent book for encouraging young people to be empowered. Naima and Cecilia Ricks, thank you very much for joining us, and tell us a little bit about Empowerment ABCs.
Yes, thank you for having. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Naima Ricks, and I'm here with my lovely mother, Cecilia Dallis Ricks, the co-authors of the Empowerment ABCs. You know, it was just great hearing from the first speaker today because this book was truly inspired by my career and my passion. I began my career working in higher education for many years where I worked with college students, and oftentimes I would feel like I kind of got to them too late. I would hear stories about my friends' kids and just seeing the things that they're going through in life. And then when I would work with my college students, I'm just like, we need some empowerment. I'm doing empowerment workshops for them in college, but I'm like, this is too late. We need to start younger. So after going out to brunch with my girlfriends, I came home and I told my mother, we're going to write. Well, actually, no, I said, I'm going to write a book. and then I told her my idea. She said, we're going to write a book because I'm going to make it even better. Okay. And that's where it became about, where I just started writing it honestly on my phone. This was all through actually the pandemic. Thank you, stimulus check, because my stimulus check was my investment into this. Okay. So with that, we came up with the idea of the Empowerment ABCs, and we came up with the idea of really writing a book that was simple for all ages. So you could pick it up if you're having a bad day and just say, I want to be empowered. And what's great about our book is that throughout the book, it's colorful, and all of the pictures, some people have names, some don't. But what's great about it is that you can create your own names or create up your own characters in the book. And they all kind of relate to some things that happen out in our lives. So, for example, K is for kind. And on that page, you'll see a young girl who is in a wheelchair. And when I was younger, I had to be homeschooled for quite some time because I was in a wheelchair and my school wasn't ADA compliant. And I'm just so grateful for all those folks who were kind to me. And I want other people to be kind to one another. So that's the inspiration behind our book. And I'll let my mom share a little bit more about it.
What she failed to mention, my daughter, Dr. Ricks, is that years ago, she and her best friend started an after-school program as part of a community service event where they tutored young children. And now she is the executive director of a program that tutors children after school. It's just a wonderful testament to what she has become and where she's going. And like she said, she came running in like she did with all of her projects in school and during Girl Scouts. And she said, Mommy, this is my idea. And I'm like, wow, let's go with that. You know, one of the things she failed to mention, our children are multicultural because that's the world we live in. We live in a multicultural world. Mm-hmm. On our cover, it speaks to children on top of the world, and the back says the child is holding up the world, because that's what we're gearing our children to be, to grow up and hold up this world of ours, to empower themselves. There's so many different references to people, powerful people. We mentioned President Obama. We mentioned Beyonce. We mentioned Muhammad Ali. Ruth Bader Ginsburg is my favorite page. It speaks to justice. You know, back in the day, she wasn't even allowed to practice law because she was a woman. A lot of people don't know these facts. So we're hoping that not only will you read the book, but you'll be encouraged to learn something else about the people we have highlighted in your life.
Well, you both seem like you're very empowering people to me. So when you talk about empowerment, can you talk a little bit about what that means to you?
Sure. I would say what empowerment means to me is to be, actually, you know what? I'm actually going to go to how we describe it in the book. So E is for empower, to give official authority or power to. We describe the word and also give the definition for each word as well as use a sentence. So in our book here, it says we can empower others to accomplish their goals. So that's what empowerment means to me. It means to take something small and just empower a friend and empower a colleague to really just go on and take the world and accomplish their goals. That's what it means.
And our page, which talks about bullying, which is really important in our lives, we teach our children how to stand up to the bully. You stand up to a bully by staying united. So if I see Dr. Riker being bullied, I'm going to go to her help and say, look, leave her alone. And then if that doesn't work, my daughter's going to step in and say, hey, leave her alone. And if that doesn't work, you're going to step in and say, leave her alone, because it becomes a community thing, so that this can be stopped if we all stick together and just lend a helping hand.
I love that this is like a cross-transformational tool, right? And that you're tapping into like that multicultural component where it teaches us kind of how we need to be to one another cross-culturally. Because I think sometimes we silo ourselves in these sectors, right? And then when it comes time for us to work together, the social skill set that we need is not necessarily there. So I love that you're starting on a ground level with children and giving them a great tool that's going to help them on later on in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And we even try to also, the book is rather challenging. It's actually at a 4th grade reading level. So a lot of the words are like optimistic. You know, it's kind of hard for a 1st grader possibly to pronounce that word, but we actually have the conjugation of the word and how to say it out loud. And, you know, thinking about those passions that a person might have. We use my brother's name. His name is Dallis. Got to give him a little shout out. But for P is for passion, intense striving, and overmastering feeling. And so the sentence that we have for passion is my brother is passionate about baking delicious cookies. He is like, you could eat all things. My brother is 6'5" and he loves to play basketball. He does not like to bake cookies, but, you know, we're passionate about eating cookies. And so we thought that we would still incorporate, you know, still to some friends, some family, and just encouraging that passion for folks there.
So part of your role, Dr. Ricks, is to teach children and to empower them. So what are some of the things that you do to empower children?
Some of the things that I do to empower children are to, number one, like I would say, always remind them that they are strong, that they are loved, and that they have many folks around them who are there to support them. I really do that within my work and my professional work. As my mom mentioned, I also work for a nonprofit where we provide after-school programming for young kids. So with that, I really just try to remind them that they're empowered, do different social, emotional learning activities, and keep them engaged.
Sometimes it's just a matter of saying to someone, you can do it. You
It's
know,
a lot of encouragement.
just say, you can do it. You can do it. I've worked with even adults at my job. I've had people say to me, you know, I don't know if I'm qualified. Okay, that's what they want you to think. So when you see a child who says, I can't do this, you say, yes, you can. Let's try it. And if you can't, because of some physical thing, we're just going to keep trying until we get it done right, you know, or we're trying till we get it done wrong. And that's okay as well. But we have to say, let's try it and encourage that motion, that action to do. You know, a lot of time kids are on tablets and they're sitting home playing games and Xbox and stuff. I used to kick my kids outside. My kids had all those games, but you got to go outside for a little while. Let's get some exercise. Let's get some air. Let's get some vitamin D, you know, and I speak to that in the book, getting sunshine. These are things that keep us thriving and keep us going.
So where did the inspiration for this book and this movement, where did that come from?
The inspiration came from my background as a higher education professional. I used to work for many colleges and universities in college student personnel administration, as well as an adjunct professor. So with that, I was constantly providing workshops, empowerment sessions for them. And so I really wanted a way to inspire them, to empower not only my college students that I work with, but the youth that I work with. Growing up my entire life, I was a Girl Scout, so I thought about and still a Girl Scout, and I you know, think about all the young girls that I was still working with, you know, in my professional career. So just thinking about a simple yet effective tool for people to be empowered, people to feel good. You can wake up and be like, what's the word of the day? And kind of take it from there and just really just see a light in the day.
This is beautiful as a tool. So I guess my question for you is, how are you incorporating it into like learning systems, and like how are you actually getting kids to pick up and read it and use it?
We actually align ourselves with our local library, and our librarian or library director has been very, very supportive in getting the word out through the libraries. So we go out to the libraries and we read in the libraries. We've read at schools. We've had our political figures. We have a commissioner who actually goes to school and reads our book.
Nice.
So it's really doing the legwork, going from door to door, so to speak. When we meet children, we'll give them out as gifts to small children or people who are having a baby. We'll put it in the baby basket. But it's been a journey.
Can you read a couple of other pages from the book?
Oh, absolutely. O is for optimistic. Optimistic is an adjective of relating to or characterized by optimism, feeling or showing hope for the future. Being optimistic about new ideas has led to fantastic discoveries.
I want to read one. How about C is for courage? I always knew what the definition of courage was, but when you see it in this context, it's just very moving and powerful, right? So C is for courage, mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. It takes courage to put an end to bullying.
That's one of our favorite pages, along with L is for leader. So when you think about empower, you might think about leaders in your life. So leader is a noun. A person who leads. So my teacher, the sentence is, my teacher is a great leader. She inspires her students every day. And in this picture for this particular page, you can see a teacher standing over the children in the classroom. And so a lot of folks, when you think about who a leader in your life, is often like a professor or a leader or a teacher in your life who may have had that great impact in your life, who has inspired you and has empowered you.
That's great.
So what are your plans for the future for this project?
Our plans for the future, when we wrote this book, it was just, again, it was on a whim. I missed the pandemic because I had so much time. I was like, let's write this book, let's create a website, let's do all this. So that's when we started the Empower brand. So we could see we're wearing empowered hoodies right now.
I see you're fully empowered
yes,
there. Yeah.
So not only do we want you to feel empowered, but we want you to wear the empowered every day. So our plans for the future to continue to grow the brand. We have discussed like our next book, and then also, we want to encourage folks to purchase our empowered hoodies. They are available on naimaricks.com. So those are the plans for the future.
Have you thought about doing an audio version of the book?
Oh.
We just have.
Okay, there you go.
Yes.
That is why Kenya is the media maven.
Oh,
So-
yes. Thank you. That's a great suggestion.
I like to encourage parents. When my kids were little, I would read to them every night before they went to bed. So I like to encourage parents to read the book to their kids at night. And that's when, like Naima said, for the pages that don't have a person's name in, you fill it in. Use your imagination. The book is very geared towards using your imagination so that you can take it even further. Talk about a page a night. Talk about a letter a night.
Right.
And just focus in on that word. Then you can have a discussion with your child as to what it means to you.
Well, there you go, everybody. Cecilia and Naima Ricks, The Empowerment Project. They've got an amazing book. And can you get this on Amazon?
Yes, it is available on Amazon. So you can do a search for the Empowerment ABCs or for my name, Naima Ricks, on Amazon. And you can also find us on social media via Naima Ricks, as well as my website, naimaricks.com. And that's NAIMARICKS.com.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure that you check out their website. It sounds like a perfect gift for the youngster in your family that doesn't involve some sort of device, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely
perfect for that.
Thank you.
Now we are going to turn to Derick Johnson. Derick is a fitness guy, and he's got all sorts of good advice for us. Derick, welcome to the show. Tell us what's going on.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran. I was in the U.S. Army for 10 years, and so was my father. So growing up, seeing all the changes that happen to military families, to their kids, and to the general public, I was always inspired to help people in a deeper way. So my main mission is help people identify patterns that are not serving them so they can go from just surviving to thriving. And what I mean by that is the individual that crushes it in sales, but they can't keep a relationship to save their life. Or the person that has had multiple divorces, but they're amazing at other things. So there's always one thing that all of us want to attack. And we bring that into the light rather than wait till January 1st. It's holiday season. We want to say, I'm going to get around to it. We face it, and then we take control of that thing. Because there's usually one main thing, and it usually starts from their childhood, whether it's bullying, whether it is something with family, a physical trauma, mental. But we pull those things out so that way they don't carry that thing into everything that they do. So they don't feel like they hit a ceiling in their life. That's the main thing I do. I help people identify what that pattern is so we can break that, so they can start to thrive. And they feel like, I can breathe again. That thing, I've been carrying that into every friendship, relationship, business, presentation. And they're just like, can I just get rid of that? So that's what I help people get rid of so they feel like he or she has their power back.
I love that because I think sometimes we just get focused on the physical fitness portion of our lives and being in shape or eating healthy, right? But we don't really dissect like the inner stuff that's going on that could be leading to why we can't master being healthy in other parts of our lives. So you do everything. So you got the fitness stuff, you have the mind body stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I appreciate it. So the whole intent, I was a personal trainer since I was 15 years old. So I'm 34, but fitness was always my passion, performance, helping people with nutrition. But when I got around 21, I realized that people that I work with that wouldn't see me for months or years, like after our program duration, they lost progress. Younger version was like, oh, they just got lazy. But mature, older version said, you know what? It's my fault. I didn't give him or her the mental tools they needed to break those patterns. So that's what got me deep into life coaching and psychology. So nowadays, people less likely ever go backwards, even after the duration, because they know their mind and body, and they got rid of that thing.
So what are the tools that you use to uncover this? If I were to come to you and say, all right, assess me, what would you do?
The first thing I do with anyone is create a eliminate sheet. And what I mean by that, we grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, and we ask ourselves the question, what is something that I could get rid of that would help me get more progress? So the most common thing nowadays is attention span. People's attention span, all humans, is lower than ever. Emails, texts, TikTok, media, Drake has a new song, this is happening, economy, this, that, my dog needs me, my girlfriend needs me, like all this stuff that's happening. People's attention span is all over the place. So it's hard for them to make much progress in their life. But that's one example. So that person could say, you know what? I need to eliminate mindless scrolling. That's their eliminate. For someone else, it's like, hey, 10 p.m., I'm always on Uber Eats or I'm in the kitchen. And they don't realize it till 11. They're like, let me get my butt to bed. So whatever their thing is, write out their eliminate list, but be honest and transparent with themselves, but neutral. Opposed to saying, oh, January 1st, I'm going to start my resolution. We just face it. And it's usually the small thing, what we consume, what we eat, what we drink, how we speak to ourselves, and most importantly, what we're looking at online. A very common one that I see is people wake up and they just start scrolling, or they wake up and they hit snooze 5 to 10 times. And they're like, man, why am I so foggy? Caffeine's not helping. My motivational video's not helping.
It's a really good point, because if you look at all the things that you do as habits, you spend a lot of your life doing that habit. You know, if you go to the refrigerator every time there's a commercial on TV, you're spending a lot of time at the refrigerator if you do that for 5 years, right?
Exactly.
And so it really does make sense to take a look at what your habits are and make sure that they're the right ones.
100%. And so that's what we face. We face what that pattern is, and we look at a default setting. So a default setting is like, what is your automatic level of operation? So in the military, we could see by someone's physicality what their normal operation level is. So in life, it's like, we have a friend that's always kind of negative. Oh, you know, it's not going to happen. Oh, you know, holiday season, I'm still single. They always have these little side comments, but they say it so much that 80% or more of their verbiage, they text it, they post it, they speak it, is something that is not empowering. And they don't realize it because that's just their default setting. And then the other friend is like, always upbeat. Life is amazing. We're blessed. You woke up. Be happy. And that's their default setting. So they're not actually using more or less energy. That's just where they operate. So what we do, we identify where's your normal operating and how can we raise it. And step one is first to get rid of things. So my intent is not to show me your schedule. We're going to flip it. Show me your fridge. We're going to throw away the top 2 shelves. And we were just like overwhelm the person. It's more so, what is the main thing that you feel you could eliminate?
Right. I'm glad you mentioned the military, because I was going to ask you, was there anything that you learned from being in the military that has helped you develop this type of a programming for the people that you work with?
Yes, great question, 100%. And it's mainly working with different cultures. So working with such diverse cultures, also myself, my father's African-American and my mother's German. So as a child, I grew up in Germany. So being around the German culture, being around different people, I realized that military brats, which are just kids that have military parents, they're more open-minded only because they traveled or they've been around so many people that once they come back to America or wherever they're at, they can click with anyone so easily because they're so used to it. So I'm bringing that up because being mixed, being military, and just living in different places, and also like my own childhood trauma, I was just always that quiet kid reading the room.
Yeah.
Like I would just absorb. And the older I got, I could just speak to people at a different level because I realized that everybody that's been through trauma, what you were not getting as a child, you give to others. I was not getting the love and support as a child or teenager, so that's why I give it so much, opposed to continuing the negative cycle. So that's what I challenge people to do is like, what were you not getting as a child or teen? And usually we're searching for that in people when we should actually give that thing to others.
Yeah.
So that is ultimately like what got me into the path, because drugs and alcohol run on both sides of my family. And I was just on the physical, verbal, mental brunt of it for most of my life. But I was always calm. And they're like, how are you so calm? But I would just work out and just try to help others instead of just being angry.
Yeah.
So do you find that the exercise piece is sort of central to your program? Or is it now sort of a partnership between the mental and the physical?
It's definitely a 50-50 partnership because, an example, some athletes that I work with, they're amazing in sports, physicality, they do marathons, they have the local 5K, whatever they want to do, but maybe mentally they're lacking in public speaking confidence or social settings. And then on the flip side, the person, they love the social settings, but they don't know what to do in the gym. So I see a 50-50 based on the person, because once we can get them in alignment with their goals, their mind, their body, and to give them their power where they're like, the light bulbs are going off. They have the clarity. That's my whole intent with anybody, is to give them clarity. Like, I'm not the keto guy. I'm not the Liver King guy. I'm not this. I'm just, what is your schedule? What is something we can get rid of? Learn about their upbringing and all that. And then we tailor it to that person. So nothing is just like a one size fit all. But the whole intent is to break those patterns that aren't serving them, and they get rid of those things. And it usually stems, I go back to bullying a lot, and you mentioned it earlier, bullying is a huge thing because that can dictate why people have a lot of eating disorders. Yes, there's other medical things, but in that person's mind, they might still feel like that heavy 12-year-old, and dad and aunt talk to them a certain way, and they carry that with them. So even if they do lose weight, in their brain, they're still that 12-year-old obese kid, no matter how many round of applauses they get from people. So we really identify that and give them their power back, because the power is within us. We're just overshadowed by stress, mindless scrolling, or whatever else is going on.
That's a good point. I do want to pivot to Dr. Rajka, though, because this is in your wheelhouse. So do you have anything that you wanted to ask or contribute?
Derick just hit the nail on the head if you don't address all the patterns that come about, because we hear a lot of excuses, but you're looking at, reframing that, what can you do? Because a lot of people tell you what they can't do, and they're not being empowered. So, and that's our job, is to coach them to be empowered. And just to add to that mindless scrolling, they actually found in high performance, there's studies that have been done that if you scroll within the first 30 minutes of wakening, your performance goes down. So you should at least not scroll for that 30 minutes.
Give yourself 30 seconds? Okay.
Right. And one of the things I was going to say about entrepreneurs is prioritize yourself. And what I do is, and what helped me through the pandemic was, I really had to shut out the noise and focus on taking care of myself first. And one of the talks I give is, moms, put your oxygen mask on first. But it should be everyone, put your oxygen mask on first. And what I do at home is what I do here, and how I eat at home is typically how, and so that's how I stay healthy, because I'm keeping similar routines. And if I have a busy day, I might be just taking 10 breaths in the morning and reflecting on what I'm grateful for. And instead of hitting the snooze, looking at what's that joy I'm going to find today. I started Friday Fun Day a while back, and it really initially involved taking my daughter out after school, and so we just walk around and get a tea. It was nothing big, spend time together. But I'm like, hey, why don't we make every day a fun day?
So, Derick Johnson, I wanted to get back to something that you had to say, and that was, people tend to kind of lose some of the training over a period of time. Yes. And you feel that this approach helps to keep them on track. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
So the whole intent is to give somebody long-term results. I'm not the 60-day shred guy or the 5-week boot camp and all that. Those things do work, but it's not going to give somebody long-term results, because usually that extreme training or eating, they can't sustain that more than 1 or 2 months. And after that, they jump to the next thing. So what we look at is their current life, their career, if they're a mother or father, or if they're not. We look at everything, and longevity is the key. To give them their power back in terms of mental health and physical health, so they can live a better life and thrive. So when they do get stress from life, from work, from whatever happens in the world, they're proactive because they took care of themselves. Because when we're selfish, it's not selfish, we're selfless. So like my example, I wake up early every morning to have an hour or 2 hours to myself. I work out, spend time with my girlfriend and my dog, reset my mind, and then I can speak to anybody. Because the rest of the day, I'm just calm and controlled. But the intent is to be proactive in your morning. We've all done it. We've hit snooze 5 times. Stress and anxiety goes up. Everyone on that moment needs you. Emails, texts, calls, you're like, can I get 10 minutes to myself? So we just try to have a proactive morning to take control. But everything is longevity. The more aha moments and clarity that they have, the more they're like, that's why I did that in relationships. That's why I couldn't public speak. Whatever it was, the more moments they have of that, long term, they make better progress and better results.
So do your clients find these moments themselves, or do you help unlock them?
We work together. So essentially we do two things. One, I have a private coaching app, which is all fitness nutrition. And two, we do Zoom calls, or if we live in the same area, we do it in person. And on the Zoom calls or conversations, that's where the quote-unquote magic happens because we dive deep into the topics. You can usually read the person. So an example could be Susie. Susie's overwhelmed, and I can tell. So today's topic is irrelevant. She just needs to vent. And as a coach, reading that person, she's not going to absorb the information of today's topic, so I'll let her vent for 20 minutes. And I say, you feel good? How long do you want to feel this way? She's like, 5 minutes. And we release it, and we go from there. And after she released, she's open to absorb the next information. So it's more so looking at that person and where they're at to assess the situation, opposed to just saying, well, today this was on the agenda. It's like, no, they're human, I'm human, identify where they're at, and then go a different approach. So we're approaching it that way. It's a 50-50. We meet each other in the middle, and they're like, wow, nobody really let me rant. And sometimes this goes for anybody. We just actively have to listen because every human just wants two things. We want to be heard and understood. Heard and understood. Family usually doesn't do it. Friends sometimes don't do it because they're busy texting and scrolling. Oh, yeah, I was listening.
So what was your reading of me as I was inhaling a plate of macaroni and cheese and walking around? I forgot you were a fitness person, by the way. I'm like, oh, my God, it just dawned on me that I did that. So hopefully you weren't judging me because I do work out, and I only work out so I could eat.
I wasn't judging.
Okay.
I don't know your routine.
I'm like, man, I can't believe I did that, but it's okay.
So what are your plans for the future and building your practice, and what is it that you want to accomplish in 2024?
99.9% of the business is online, so I have a coaching app, and then I do all the calls on Zoom. But in 2024, it's to bring the in-person workshops and masterminds to it, and not a pitch fest. So we've all paid for a ticket before, and we want to learn that one thing, but then we got to level up to the diamond package and the gold package, and you're like, how many packages do I got to get before I learn that thing? Nothing like that. It's a 3-day thing. Day one, we go hiking to the top of a mountain, and we release trauma. We're at the top. We do breathing exercises. We move the body, a lot of natural modalities, no drugs or anything. But basically, imagine 20 to 100 people hiking up a mountain together. And we're not climbing it. We're just hiking, pushing each other. You get to the top, and we have this level of energy. We're proud of each other. And then from there, we start to build up. Somebody might need to release tears, which is totally fine to cry for a couple minutes. Somebody else might just need to yell. Somebody else is excited. But imagine all those people at the top. Then from there, we walk down. The rest of the day, we have some food and all that. Day two, that's where we dive deep. And the reason this is so effective is because we've already embraced the suck. We say this in the Army. We embraced the suck together, meaning we hiked up it. His back was hurting. We helped her. So day two, we dive deep into their traumas on what they want to get rid of. And then day three, we have fun, have camaraderie, but they all go home with tools that they can use long term. There's not like another level or package. So it's the team aspect in person again.
That sounds great. I think a lot of people would benefit from that, and it sounds like it could be really motivating. What else do you have in store for 2024?
Honestly, just continuously getting better as a person and as a coach so I can help people in a deeper way. Because anytime that I learn something new that can help somebody, even if it's a stranger, not just a client, I'm excited to tell them because I can sense where they're at. And they're like, thank you. That's that one golden nugget that I needed. So just giving people that because I know what it feels to not have that. So again, I feel like we just give what we didn't receive as a child or we continue the negative path. So.
That's good.
Derrick, where can people find you?
People can find me on social media at FitWithDerrick2, the number 2. And that's Derick, the only right way to spell Derrick. So it's FitWithDerrick2. Or on my website is fitwithderrick.com. On there, I just like to show real people with real results. So pictures and videos, they tell their story. And it's not just fitness, but I love showing the videos so they can sense the person's calmness, confidence. And so like from the outside, they just see the fit military guy. But when they see the people, they're like, wow, we focus on deep trauma. And that's what it's about. So going from just surviving to thriving.
Nice.
Derick Johnson, thanks for joining us. And you're listening to Passage to Profit. We'll be right back after this commercial. Have you heard about PodFest yet? It's the world's largest continuous in-person podcasting event in Orlando, Florida, and you got to check it out. Richard Gearhart here, and I want to tell you about an event that we're going to that we're super excited about. Yes, PodFest Expo 2024 is coming soon, a huge podcasting festival in Florida, and it's their 10th anniversary. Go to podfestexpo.com and use the code GearhartLaw for your ticket. Whether you have a podcast and want to meet meet other podcasters, you're thinking of starting a podcast yourself, or you provide support to podcasters, this is the place to be in 2024. Meet the people who are shaping and influencing the podcasting industry and join PodFest as they also host the Podcasting Hall of Fame. The dates are January 25th through the 28th, 2024, and we'd love for you to join us in meeting podcasters from around the globe. The diverse cast of speakers means there's something for everyone. The learning and networking will be amazing. Throw in a couple of parties just for fun, and you have the podcasting event of the year. Go to podfestexpo.com to get your ticket now. Use the code Gearhart Law for a special discount. Elizabeth and I hope to meet you there.
It's Passage to Profit.
Time for Noah's retrospective. Noah Fleischman is our producer here at Passage to Profit, and he has a way of putting his best memories in perspective.
When they said, "and a little child shall lead them," they didn't mean out of a parking lot after a concert at a symphony hall. But 50 years ago, that's exactly what this child did with his mother and his aunt, the reluctant disciples. You know, it's great that they have that invention that makes the car blink and make noise at a distance when you're looking for it in a parking lot full of cars that look alike. But back then, you really didn't need that in order to find a snow-white Buick Electra 225 parked in between a brown Chevy Nova and a green Volkswagen. But for the life of them, neither one of these two women could actually see it. Only this kid did. And it took 2 walking circles around that parking lot for me to get their attention while they were telling me, "Will you be quiet? We're looking for the car." Ultimately, I did get their attention, and we boarded and shoved off, and not another word was said about it, thank goodness. It was kind of worrisome. I mean, could they have lost me that easily? Well, when we stopped off on the way home and went to the store, I got out of the car and went in with them. I certainly wasn't going to wait in the car.
Now more with Richard and Elizabeth. Passage to Profit.
Kenya, I think that this was just an amazing show in so many ways, wasn't it?
It was fun. We had a really good conversation.
So it is now time for the question. And so Elizabeth always asks everybody on the show at the end of the show a question. All right. And I'll see if I can do it as well as she does. What person inspired you the most in your life and why? Dr. Rajka, what about you? What's your most inspiring person?
If I had to pick one person, it'd be my mom. She just got things done. And more importantly, she just showed up. Every time that I needed her, she just showed up.
Cecilia?
I'm going to say my mom. She worked hard and she persevered. What I got from my mom was her bad language. So you guys didn't have to bleep me. She spoke her mind, and I think I do too. So I think I got a lot of that from my mom.
For me, this is Naima. I would say what inspires me, and people who have inspired me are, number one, people who have always told me that maybe I'm not good enough or maybe I can't do something. I still remember when I was completing my PhD, I told my professor I'm getting ready to go to Vegas for the weekend. And he was like, well, when you get back, you need to buckle down. I don't think you can travel and be a doctoral student. And I kept traveling the entire time while I completed my PhD. So that inspired me because he thought I couldn't do it, right?
What a grouch. I mean, you know.
He needs to read the Empowerment ABCs book.
Exactly. So people like that are what inspires me. And also, of course, my mother inspires me and I'm grateful to be here with her today. She really continues to inspire me, even sometimes when I think I can't do something. I was at, in a room with a lot of let's say big people in town. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in this room. And my mother, I'm not going to use her profound words, but in her slang words, she's like, you poppin', sis. And then she tells me I'm popping to be in a room with, these big dignitaries who I was with. So, it's grateful that she always inspires me and continues to push me to be great and to do better in the world.
Nice.
So.
That's really nice. Derick?
I would say Tony Robbins. When I was 11 years old, that's when a lot of trauma started happening with family, like drunk parents, screaming rage and all that. And I'm driving in the backseat of my dad's car, and he had the cassette tapes. And Tony Robbins' quote, and I'm 11 hearing this, but I'm just so open-minded because you see a lot of wild stuff. And he said, if my mother gave me the love that I wanted as a child, I wouldn't be the man I am today. And I'm 11 hearing this, and I was like getting chills. Telling my friends, like, what are you talking about? And then I learned more about him, and I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah. He's a powerful guy. I met him once on an elevator. He was just in the hallway, and I was like, oh, my God. And he has that presence to him. First of all, he's a big guy. But even just his whole spirit was like, he's big in the spirit, too.
Oh, yeah.
Interesting.
Dr. Rajka is publishing a new book, Energized, Feel Fantastic Forever. And we had Cecilia and Naima Ricks with the ABCs of Empowerment. And they're a dynamic duo, bringing a lot of positive energy and positive messages to the world. And you can find their book on Amazon. And after them, we had Derick Johnson, a very inspiring young man who helps people figure things out, both emotionally and physically, and he'll help you live at the next level. So very nice to have you on the show.
Thanks again for having me.
Reach him at fitwithderick.com. And before we go, I'd like to thank the Passage to Profit team, Noah Fleischman, our producer, Alicia Morrissey, our program director. Our podcast can be found tomorrow anywhere you find your podcast. Just look for the Passage to Profit Show. And you can find us on Instagram and Threads at Passage to Profit Show, and Twitter, or if you're even more up to date, X at Passage to Profit, and on our YouTube channel. Please also join us on our new Facebook group. Search for Passage to Profit Show Listener Community, a new community space for our listeners and guests where you can post questions that you would like answered on the show and interact with the Passage to Profit team. And remember, while the information on this program is believed to be correct, never take a legal step without checking with your legal professional first. Gearhart Law is here for your patent, trademark, and copyright needs. You can find us at gearhartlaw.com and contact us for a free consultation. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.